Welcome to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Hal Blood. Sitting here with my co-host, Good Lee. Shans.
That's me.
And our special guest today is Scott Gaillard. And he is our new director of videography. So Scott's handling our all the footage the guys are bringing in and getting it out to the editors.
Yep.
And organizing things for us, organizing things for me, because I'm disorganized. He's been working me to death. He's got me on a tight schedule, but it's going to be great because we're doing a bunch of new films. We got the new podcast going on, and we got to up the game on the content and the quality. And I'm glad to have Scott heading that up, because if not, it probably wouldn't have got done.
I guess, yeah. No, it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been
So
fun
welcome
and exciting.
aboard. Glad to have you. And not to forget, Scott, as quite a few people that have joined us, just started out as fans, really, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, learned and found us somehow along the way and started listening and learning and getting into the big woods. So tell us your story.
Yeah. So like you said, I actually didn't even grow up hunting at all. So it wasn't until my mid-20s when I got into it, and I was in Virginia at the time.
Did you grow up in Virginia?
No, I bounced around. Mostly grew up in New York.
Yeah.
I was out in California for a little while, and then we ended up in Northern Virginia, and ran into my buddy Sean, who you know very well. Yeah, and he
Don't forget to get that posted.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get his permission.
We got
for
a
that,
special little film clip.
Sean's getting hooked too. So Sean was he was a few years into hunting himself, and was more than happy to show me the ropes. So, hunting down there, Virginia, Maryland, it's a lot of archery, all tree stand, mostly farms. And then I got into a suburban archery group, which was a lot of fun. Sean used to tell me, like, I need to get my stand time. Like, I need to catch up because I was in my mid-20s and I hadn't hunted. So I joined this suburban archery group, and we would it was volunteer, but we'd go hunt people's backyards, like just in the suburbs, people with half acre, quarter acre, like small stuff. But they had like expensive shrubbery and deer problems. They called them yard rats, and they just wanted them gone. It was a really good organization. I mean, you get a lot of exposure, a lot of stand time and a lot of deer experiences.
Yeah.
And then they were hooked up with Hunters for the Hungry, so we donated a lot of meat that fed a lot of families, hundreds of thousands of families every year in Virginia. It was a really good organization. And I got to rack up a bunch of harvests and learn how to deal with the animals, learn some behavior and stuff, but all suburban stuff. And when I moved to New Hampshire, I did that for a few more years. We're on some acreage and had some deer going through. And, my property is good for a deer or two every year, but on the whole, I was just like sitting, waiting. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And I was like Googling, like, how do people kill deer in New Hampshire and in the Northeast and stuff? And that's when I discovered Big Woods Bucks. And I kind of discovered it and then like didn't act on it right away. And then the Lee film came out. And I forget when that was exactly. I think 2019. And I watched that twice, and I was like, man, it's just got such a romantic feel to it, and it's very well shot, cinematographic quality, and gets a nice buck. And the romance of that, I was like, I want to do that. Like, I'd rather do that all day, all season, and not kill a deer than sit in a tree stand and not see a deer. Like, let me explore the woods, because I love nature. I love the outdoors. I love staying fit. And, Big Woods hunting has all that to offer. So, yeah, read the books, got in the clinic. And by 2020, I was ready to come up and do a guided hunt. Went with Brian. And, because just to back up, like, I had no clue where to even start. Like, I think for a lot of guys just getting started, it's like you literally don't even know where to park your truck. like what part of the woods, looking at a map, like where do I go? Like to drive up to the White Mountains and like park at a hiking trail, or do I just start walking like behind my house, or like, and so that's what was so good about, well, all the Big Woods system, the books, the clinic, it's a formula, and it shows you like, here's what you're looking for. Like when you look at a map, here's what you're looking for, and here's how you could approach this spot, and here's what you do when you get there. So hunting with Brian was good, really good, like to show me what was possible and all the stuff you talk about in the clinic. Like, don't be afraid of getting lost. You got your maps, you got your compasses, you got your Onyx, and don't be afraid to just try it. Don't be afraid of getting miles into the woods. You know, you got your emergency fire starting gear and all that stuff. And with Brian, I shot that nice buck on Thursday. And so obviously I was hooked at that point, right? Because then I'm like, okay, not only is it like fun, but I could actually get a nice buck. Yeah.
But that one's 198.
198, yeah. So we were telling that story too. It's funny at the weigh station, because you pull in the Bishops and people driving by there see a deer getting hooked up, and they pull right over and get out and crowd the scale and or crowd the hoist, you know, and everyone's watching, and it tick, 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 198. And everyone, you know, guys slap me on the back. Sorry, buddy. Better luck next year.
But they were all happy for you. There's not a lot of non-hunters in Jackman.
Yeah. And I was super happy. Like,
right.
It was just kind
There's
of
something
funny.
about that 200. I mean, 2 pounds. What the heck's the difference? But it's got to,
You got to get that 200, but which I'm still chasing. But no, that was an awesome year. And then had another great guided hunt the following year with Roger. And then I was with Roger again the third year. And then 2023, I came up by myself, and we had snow. I just stayed in the same spot all week and didn't get on a buck track, not a fresh one anyway. And then this year, it was the first year I put it together by myself on bare ground Monday morning. There's a video out about that.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. So I feel like I've somewhat graduated, but I'm still chasing the 200-pounder.
Yeah. It'll come.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What you hunting in the right area to get one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's the title of this? Your film we just put out there.
I think it starts with finally. It probably says finally. Big Woods Bucks contributor Scott Gaillard shoots his first Big Woods solo buck or something like that.
Oh yeah.
It says bare ground buck on the thumbnail there because we didn't have snow, and it's in the right spot.
So
I guess.
you shot one with Brian the first year. And then did you get one the first year with Roger?
I did, yeah. So that was Friday. We had snow most of the week that second year, third week. And but when we got to like Friday, it had all melted. So he and I just went to a spot that actually Steven had shown us this spot where
He's way too easy with his information. Almost all the guides up there last week were hunting places Stephen put them onto.
I told Steven, I said, you got to keep a little to yourself.
That
I'm
kid
sure
can find
he
deer.
does.
He can find deer sign.
Oh, yeah.
He knows where it is.
Yeah, it was a good recommendation. I don't think anybody's too guarded. I mean, there's plenty. That's the great thing about camp. Like everyone's trading information and try this, try that, and
Everybody wants everybody to get a deer.
yeah. And I know, Hal, you send people out and then you get the scouting report when they get back at night. So that's smart.
I always make sure, hey, what'd you see today?
Take notes, right?
You got any Onyx pins for me?
Yeah, right.
Here's a few words from our sponsors. They're all top-notch people. We're glad to have them aboard. Make sure you support them. That's what keeps us going. Being the low-tech guy I am, there's one thing I've learned to embrace with technology, and it's my Onyx. I used to carry maps and GPS when it finally came out and stuff, but the Onyx has eliminated that because I've got my GPS in my phone now with my Onyx app. I can mark everything in that. It's helpful that I can show other people by putting a pin in if I want to send somebody to a place. Being a guide, that's important, you know. I can give them the pin, you know, put it in theirs, you know, I text it to them, whatever. So if you want to get your Onyx, get your Big Woods Bucks code, BWB, and get you 20% off, but I highly recommend it. Give you a little update, Skinner Sights. We all know they're the best site going, but it's a great company because Andy and the crew there are innovative and they're always thinking up either new models to make a sight for, improve the sights, making mounts for scopes, and now they've come on with their own line of scopes and red dots. Whatever Andy does in the company, it's top-notch, first quality, and they stand behind everything, and we're glad to have him as a partner, and we hope you'll try their sights, and you can trust your life with those, and they're going to get you the game. So get your Skinner sights, and you can trust me that you're going to be glad you did. Just wanted to talk a little bit about minus 33 and the wool they have, which I believe is best wool going, whether it's base layers or your socks or whatever you're wearing. You got to have wool. I've been stressing that for people for years, to wear your wool, whether it's the outerwear or even your base layers and socks. I've been to the tour of the plant, see how they make their socks, and it's quality, the fit is right, and they're going to be long lasting. I've got socks I've had now for several years, and they look like I'll have them for several years more before they even think about wearing out. So I trust my life to wool, and you can too. Minus 33. All right, back to the podcast.
Yeah, so we went to that spot, and transition zone, just good area. It was a hardwood ridge down to like a spruce strip down to like a swamp, and came up on a big rub, heard a doe blow and stand up. She was bedded in the hardwoods, and we just froze there and waited for her to decide she wanted to get out of there, and we were crossing our fingers that there would be a buck behind her, and there was.
Easy as that.
So I shot him. It was like 7:30. We were out of there. We're back at camp. Chris was in camp. We had some donuts and coffee, and like, what are we going to do now? And Roger had his new Big Woods 35 Whalen. He's like, well, I could sight that in, and we can go hunting. So we went up to that snowmobile club or whatever. There's a range back there. He sighted that in. And while he's doing that, it starts to snow. So we go in the woods. There's a squall. There's an inch of snow on the ground all of a sudden. And we said, I have my 870 because I'm like, we've been seeing partridge all week. I'm like, I'm going to shoot some birds. But then we said, if we see a buck track, it's going to be smoking hot because it just stopped snowing like 15 minutes ago. And sure enough, bump into a buck and two does, I think, across the road. Follow them, get right on them. And we bumped into a partridge, and I didn't shoot it. And he's like, thanks. Because, we were getting close to a buck, and get into this opening, and I tapped him on the shoulder and said, there he is right there. And he goes, where? I'm like, he's over there. So he saw his body and not his head. He goes, what is he? And I'm like, Roger, I ain't gonna lie to you. He's not a big buck, but it'd be pretty cool if you shot a buck today too. And he goes, all right, boom.
Talked him right into it.
Yeah, it didn't take much convincing, yeah. So he put his buck down too, and we had a double that day. So that was my second year up here, and I was telling people I'm 3 for 2.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that was really good.
So you got hooked on the big woods.
Big time, yeah. It's my favorite way to hunt, absolutely. Because like I was saying earlier, you get so much out of a day in the big woods, whether or not you even see a deer. You're learning, you're seeing sign, you're exploring new country, you're staying fit. You're outdoors. It's a heck of a lot better than sitting in a tree stand.
I tell everybody it's like reading a really good book.
That's a good way to put it.
Reading a story.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Then you went with Roger one more year?
Yep, 2022, I went with him the second time. So that year, we had some good action that year too, man. We were in the Death Creek a couple times that week. Good snow, just couldn't put it together. And so we hunted through Saturday, and Monday he shot a 208-pound 8-pointer down where we were hunting, but he deserves it.
Yeah.
That was a year they had the, 5 or 6 200-pounders hanging on the game pole.
That's right, week 4.
And mine was dead in the woods, and I didn't know it. We could have had another one.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And mine was big. It was the best buck I've killed in probably the last 15 years, but I didn't find him till, I don't know, almost a week later, and the coyotes had found him. But yeah, I was crushed. But that was an impressive picture. I think it was at least 5 200-pounders on the game pole, right?
Yeah, there was 5 on there, I think. Yeah,
I think so.
And could have been 6. Yeah,
that picture's on the website right now. I know, so we go check it and count. But yeah, that was a good week 4 for the guides. Everybody
was you
catching
going
up.
to get that one mounted? Get a cape and.
Nope, I had Steven. I've got so many mounts, and I mean, I'm running out of places in my camp. Between moose mounts and bear mounts and deer mounts, I don't have a lot of space.
Build another camp.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably get some more done, but Steven wanted to try doing some, European mounts.
Oh, yeah.
So he did, his client killed one with him the same week that I got mine. His client killed one. So he did 2 European mounts, and then he's done a couple more. Christine, my daughter, killed a nice buck last year. He did a European for her, and then he's doing my European this year. So, yeah, he's been doing some European mounts, and I put those up. But
Do you have beetles?
nope, he just does them. He's got a system that he uses that he found on the internet, and it's mostly ivory liquid dish detergent.
Yeah.
That you end up soaking them in. It gets all the fat off them and stuff,
boil
and
'em,
cleans
it
them up.
takes
You
the-
boil them, and
Takes the grease out of them, because even though you can get the meat off, the bone actually's got grease in it. You got to get the grease out of the bone,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So then the next year you're going to go on your own, right?
Yeah, that first year I came on my own, and you gave me a good spot. 2023?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave you a good spot.
Yeah, he told me where to go. A little north.
Yeah.
But I ran into a father-son, a father and a son that were hunting up there, and they've been going up there for years. And they, at first I said, like, I'll go somewhere else. I didn't know how big it was up there. And they said, no, that's fine. You can stay. Oh, so I think Brian had shot a buck with his client the week before up there. Remember that spot?
yeah, that's
don't
one of my
remember.
spots.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was bumping into does every day. I saw more moose than does. And I had a couple like encounters with does that were just running, and I'm like, oh, there's got to be a buck coming. I'm like, shaking safety off, like ready, and it just never came together. I found a monster buck track, but it was older. That one, like one of the tips you had was if you get to the end of a road, go a little farther, go another 50 yards in the woods, and sure enough, a big old bed there and a big track. But it was probably 2 or 3 days old.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good experience. Just didn't come home with a deer that year.
All part of the learning curve. You've
Yeah.
actually done pretty well for.
Well,
know.
you're ahead of the average. Don't worry.
You're ahead of the curve.
Because I don't know, in Maine, the success rate on deer is like, on deer, not just bucks, on deer is like 15%.
Yeah, that's it.
And then you get up north here and it's got to be, I don't know if it's any more than 5%. Yeah. So that's like 1 out of 20 hunters shoots a deer. So
Yeah, I'm 3 for 5 now. So
yeah, you're way ahead of the curve.
cool. I hope that continues.
Yeah.
Hope I'm not using up all my luck, but yeah. This season I was telling you earlier, like, coming up to it, I'm dreaming about snow and getting on a good track and all that, but the weather didn't really cooperate. So when that came together on Monday morning, I wasn't gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. I was gonna take, but that he had a pretty nice, beam on him, and it wasn't a spike, and it was a cool situation with him. He was snort wheezing at me, and snort wheeze back, and he snort wheeze back, and there was a second buck there. So, and they were with a doe that was panting and walking away. So it was just a really cool encounter. And
Did you ever see the second buck?
I did, yeah. Yeah, so I saw the doe first when I crested the hilltop, and then I heard something up to my left, uphill a little bit, and I couldn't see the deer. And I heard a buck walking to my left. And as he was walking, I saw another buck in the back. And it was probably a spike. I saw one vertical piece of antler.
Smaller one, yeah.
Yeah, but I was focusing on this one that was snort wheezing at me and coming in. And then when he walked back towards the doe, that's the one I shot. And then when I ran up to like check him, this is all in the video, but the second buck snort wheezed at me, or blew at me and blew off and ran off. And then I'm like doubting myself, because at that point I had run up to like where I thought he was, and there was no blood. And then I hear another deer blow, and I was like, is that him? And then I was like, no, I don't want to shoot him because that might not be the one that I did shoot. And it all worked out great. I mean, he just went like 20 yards and crashed. I put it right through the shoulder. But like at that moment I was like panicking because I didn't know what was going on. That's why it was helpful to record, actually, because I was able to just like look at the GoPro and go back to exactly where I was standing and like recreate it and know where to go look for blood. So that helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm noticing is probably one reason why you're getting those deer, because when you shoot at them, you hit them.
Yeah.
We talked about that on the earlier
helps.
podcast, but so all the bucks that you've shot at, you've got them, right?
Yeah, one shot
That
kills.
helps.
Been
Yeah.
great. Yeah, that helps a lot.
That helps.
I do the you guys talked about this a few years ago, the rolling tire drill, you know, I put some plywood in the middle of a tire and I just tie balloons onto it, and we have a gravel pit, and I'll have my daughter stand around the berm and roll the tire out whenever she's ready and take a shot at it. I also have is it the 572, the pump 22?
Yeah.
So I got one of those for training too, and put the peep sights on it too. So you can shoot 22 shorts out of that and it hardly makes a noise. You don't need ear protection or anything.
Yeah.
Shoot that all day and for cheap, you know, get the muscle memory down. Safety's in the same spot. It feels, the stroke's a little shorter obviously, but otherwise it feels like the same gun when you just mount it, safety off and shoot. And you could shoot that, 30 times for the price of a 30-06. So.
Right.
So you did get yourself, you got a Big Woods gun, you got a 760 or a 7600?
I don't have a Big Woods version, but I bought two 7600s in like 2016. I don't know why. I mean, I hadn't found Big Woods yet, and I wasn't a huge fan of what Remington was doing at the time, but I just thought they were pretty guns. And we knew a guy in Maryland who hunted with one of those, and I didn't know there was a pump action rifle. I'm like, what are you hunting with, an 870? He's like, no, it's a 7600. I'm like, that's cool. So I bought two of those used off Gunbroker.
Were they older ones? Or?
They're like 90s.
Yeah.
90s 7600s, both in 30-06.
Yeah.
One of them came with a Leupold VX2 on it, and each of those was $450, something like that. I think about that now. I'm like, I should have bought 10.
Were they carbines?
Nope, but I cut one down. The other one's still 22 inches. The one I've used since I started hunting here is 18.5 inch. I cut it down.
Yeah.
And then I also 2 years ago I bought a 760 and 308. And that's an older one. It looks like yours. It's got like the white inlay between the end cap and the fore end.
The
It's
later
got that.
760s. Late
Real
version.
pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
That was more expensive, but I couldn't. I just wasn't sure at that time. Like, are they going away? Are they going to be $3,000 in a few years? Like, let me just.
Yeah, they are.
They are. Yeah, I guess I made a good choice. So that one was like $1,500, and I did get that one cut
Was
down.
that a
too.
carbine?
Nope, wasn't.
Rifle too.
Carbine would have been more money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't perfect either. It's got some blemishes and some like, it's not rust, but it's like rough spots on the bluing on the barrel, and enough to make me not feel bad for cutting that one down to 18 inches too.
Probably in better shape than mine.
Well, yours has character. It's
Character,
not beat up, but
I tell everybody, and I've got them from every generation. I mean, I got 14s, 141s, 760s, 7600s, and really the best, the 760s from the 70s and the 7600s from the 80s. If a guy wants to hunt with one, they're the ones that the bluing is the best and the wood finish is the best. They're tough and they shoot good. I don't know. I feel, don't you feel, Hal, those are the ones that, those 760s from the 70s and the 7600s from the 80s they're the top of the line.
Yeah. Yeah. When they got into the 90s, it was all a thing about they had to compete with the other gun companies, and they had to, since that Ilion plant was so antiquated, it cost them a lot more money to manufacture a gun there, and that was what it was about. They had to find ways to save money, whatever. In other words, they had to cheapen them somehow.
Yep.
And the 90s ones, it started just about, I think 90 was the year that, I don't know if they made all the changes at once, but that's when they started changing. So they went to the high comb stock with that cut checkering, which is nothing wrong with the cut checkering, because they still had decent wood. I don't think it was as good a wood as the older ones. You can tell it's really not as good, the standard wood, but and then they went to a cheaper trigger assembly. the old ones were, machined, and these were like the newer ones are like a cast aluminum. They painted them black. If you pull them out, the whole thing where all the parts go together is aluminum, and they painted the underneath black. But if it's a heavy kind of black paint, but if you bang it, a chip will come off from them. And yeah, they did that, and then they cheapened the blue one, and that was a way to save money. The older blue ones, that in 760s and the first 7600s through the 80s had this. It was called the blue one was 11 process, and I don't know if it means every time they dip it, but there's 11 processes in the blue one. Well, they cut that back to 7, so there's less blue one. It's not as probably rust resistant or whatever. And
it definitely isn't, because you take those newer ones. We have people complain all the time.
Yeah.
They take them out in the snow. When you get back that night, you got to dry it off and wipe it, or you've got rust. The old ones, if you brought them up and stuck them in the corner, they'd dry out and they probably wouldn't rust. But the new ones, if you don't wipe some oil on them, they're one night.
The worst ones were actually, though, they had that they called a satin finish. That's what they call it now. And then they made a matte finish. And most of them were they made the ones with the synthetic stalks, the black synthetics. And they had some, I guess, with camo synthetic. But anyways, I think that was a 5-process matte finish. And you could watch the rust materialize on them. You had to oil them. I mean, you couldn't even set them in the corner to dry. You'd want to wipe it down and get some oil on it immediately.
Yeah.
And
might as well Cerakote that if you have one of those.
Yeah, you're better off to do it, because the rest of the gun, the machining and all that was the same, but they were still the cheaper trigger guard and stuff. But yeah, that's what they did. They kind of went the wrong way with them. And
the biggest one we didn't touch on too is, as far as it's awful to see them rust and everything, but to me, the biggest mistake was when they started making the clips cheaper.
Oh yeah,
because that really, if you've got a 760 from the 70s, unless you've done something and damaged it or whatever, those things, they never jam. You never have a malfunction. But those newer ones, if you don't put them in just right, if you don't feed them just right, and sometimes even when you do, they hang up.
Yep.
You just,
the metal's thinner and
the feed lips are wrong. I have some of those Triple K mags, which is, I think that's what Remington outsourced to Triple K or something. With the plastic bottom, and if you just run a bunch of rounds through them, they'll jam on you. And I don't take them out in the woods.
Yeah,
I'm paying $80 for mags just to have enough to make sure I have the old mags that work.
What they did was they didn't do that actually till I think it was 2001, because when I worked there, I was trying to get them to go back to that, and the reason they did that was because they told me they were having to bend the feed ramp ears and everything on the older ones, and it was because the supplier, their equipment was wore out. They'd made so many of them, and instead of just telling them to, hey, if you want the contract, retool, they just sent it. They gave the contract to. It's a big company that they told me that they make the magazines for all the manufacturers. They're all made in Italy at this one Italian place. Browning, everybody. So they went to that, and that's the metal's cheap is what it is. But anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the other thing you can tell about them too is if you look at the barrels on them, they never polished the barrels enough before they blew them, because that's another process, If you look at the 80s and the 760s, when you look at those barrels, you can't see a machine mark in them. It's
super smooth and glossy.
They're just real smooth, glossy.
Yeah.
Something that we can learn from that, though, is when they cheapened them it didn't take care of the problem. It exacerbated it. So now they're not even making them. So if you had just said, well, if you want that quality, you're going to have to pay a couple $100 more, because it's still cheaper than what people are paying now. Yeah. Now look at what people are willing to pay for those things.
Yeah.
So you know, if they made them, let's say if they were still making them and they made them the right way and they were charging $1,500, they could still sell every one they made.
Easy.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny how like back in the day, the working man's gun, the level of quality was that high, and they weren't trying to make a fancy luxury gun back then. They were just like,
making something that worked.
This is a quality piece of equipment that's going to last forever. That was the standard, and now it's like there's some price wars, race to the bottom, and all of a sudden you get something that doesn't.
We
even
couldn't
work.
convince them of that when I was running that team and the team was it was called continuous improvement. That's what we were working on, because they had gone downhill, and we fought with them every day. The engineers and the other people there, they couldn't see the value. We told them, they started making like 15 different models of the 700. We go, you don't need 15 models. You need 2 or 3 models, and keep the quality, make the gloss, good wood gloss finish. And if you do that, but they were convinced through their marketing people and stuff that nobody'd buy them, I guess, and they wouldn't do it. And that was the end of them, you know.
We studied all that in school. I went to engineering school, and we studied total quality management, continuous improvement. And at the time, Toyota was like at the forefront of that. And they were proving to the world that high quality is actually cheaper to manufacture, because then you don't have all these like returns and malfunctions and recalls and all that stuff to deal with. If you monitor your production line, you stop a problem immediately as soon as you detect it, fix it, then you fix it for every piece of machine. Every product that's coming off after that is the highest quality possible, as opposed to having to like go recall a few hundred guns.
I think their main reason was they just couldn't do it there at that plant. They just had to cheapen them. They were caught in the middle of something there, and so that's
bad
what they
situation.
Did. Hi, Hal here, host of the Big Woods Bucks podcast. We're excited to announce our partnership with the most respected and recognized land company in the Northeast, Christmas and Associates Land Company. Owners Dan and Mark Christmas are 2 upstate New York natives with deep roots in the Adirondacks and Tug Hill Plateau, as well as 2 of the most passionate big woods hunters you'll meet. Whether it's newly constructed camp surrounded by state wilderness or family getaway, their team of experienced land guides are the best at matching folks with the perfect land track at an affordable price. They even provide financing. Christmas Land Guides will provide full land tours using ATVs, snowmobiles, and even snowshoes so that you can scout every acre. Christmas Land and Camp staff also help you construct the camp you've always dreamed of using our in-the-house master builders. For over 35 years, no one in New York State has provided more big buck properties and family hunting camps to hundreds of folks who love the woods than Christmas and Associates Land Company. Dan and Mark and the whole company remain dedicated to wise land conservation and treating everyone they meet like family. Always available 7 days per week unless there's fresh tracking snow. Call 800-229-7843 or visit Land and Camps on Facebook or go to landandcamps.com.
Well,
so anyways, nice. That's your gun now, is your 7600.
Yeah, it is.
What do you got for a sight on it, Pete?
Yeah, at the time thought this is a good story. I had that gun before I knew about Big Woods. I had minus 33 Long Johns before Big Woods partnered with them. These are all Sean's recommendations, by the way.
Really?
On equipment, yeah. And at the
We're
time,
gonna have to get him for a consultant.
Yeah. Oh, he's a very much a sage when it comes to gear and advice. So he's learning now about what works in the big woods and not, but he knows a lot about guns and gear for hunting. But Williams was all that was out at the time when I got that gun.
Yeah.
And so I got one Williams sight, got that set up on my main gun, which is still what I use because I'm not going to touch what ain't broke. But then he helped me find the Skinner sights. And so I've got 2 of those. I got one of those on the other 7600 and one on the 760. And I have a Williams on that 572 also, just for consistency. The Williams works. I got everything like you have nail polish on yours. I got little scratch marks. That way I can check it in the field. Like, did something slide off? I just mark through that, anodizing, whatever, so I can make sure everything's still lined up. But what I don't like is those set screws you can see daylight if you through several angles on that sight. And I'm scared of how fragile it is compared to the Skinner, which is like bulletproof, right? You just can't go
Well,
wrong.
they went through a change in those too. I saved my original one. I got it in a plastic bag. It's got nail polish and shoe glue all over it. That's what was holding it together.
Yeah.
So it was pretty easy for me to change it because I couldn't. The set screw, you're trying to set it in aluminum, and if you just tap that, it starts a groove.
Yeah.
And then you start over and put it back, and it keeps digging the groove deep, and finally it won't hold. That's why I shoe glued it. But what they did after that, the original ones were real sleek and slim, and they redesigned them, and they're gaudy and more square, and they changed the way the set screws work. They're nowhere near as good as the old ones. And then for a while, you couldn't get them. So I think that they lost the market share. And I didn't realize until, I don't know when I realized that Skinner, because when Andy took it over, he was the one that started making them for the 760, 7600. He was trying to branch out because originally they were all, the guy that started the company, he started it because of the lever actions. He wanted a lot of the guys carried their rifles in scabbards, and so he wanted something that was durable and made them out of steel. And Andy was the one that started branching out into different models, different companies and stuff. And so
we're really lucky to have him for a partner because I'm online a lot, but I read all the gun magazines and I keep on top of all that stuff. Andy is like really super respected in the gun industry.
Oh yeah.
Nobody has anything bad to say about him. And Andy he's taken a company that was already good and made it better. And I think all the noted gun writers all think a lot of Andy Larson.
Yeah, he does commercials for a lot of them, and he's out there, and he's articulate and stuff, and he knows what he's doing. But he also they've branched out into. He wanted to, branch out a little more. So Andy's got the scopes going on now, and Mark Shireen and a couple of the other guys have been testing those, and we had that meeting the other night there, and we're gonna start offering those Skinner scopes too. And then that little, I had never seen until Andy showed it. I knew Brad and Mark, a couple of the guys had got those little
the red dots.
Red dot.
Yeah.
Did you see those yet?
I did.
It's
I ended
just
up,
a little teeny thing. I mean, it don't look like it's 2 inches long.
No.
And
I know Brad used his, but I don't know. Did anybody else? Andy sent me. I got the 1-4 compact because he had sent me the year before. He'd sent me the 1-6 regular with it was a 30 millimeter for the buck hammers that we got.
Right.
But I remember telling him, and I was just honest. I like small and compact and everything, and there's nothing wrong. That 1-6 was fine, but it's bigger and bulkier than what I wanted. And I said, I'd rather have a 1-4 compact. So he sent me one. I shot my buck, the one, I've got quite a lot of footage of it. So when you do my video, we'll make sure that we show that. But I had that thing on like 2 power. It doesn't add hardly any weight. It doesn't weigh anything.
yeah, it's little. Yeah.
And I had that on like 2 power and shot that one running deer and dumped him like nothing because it's got a wide field of view and it looks like it fits on a pump gun or a lever gun. The other ones, they might not look out of place on a bigger bolt gun, but on a carbine pump gun or a lever gun, those 1-4s just are better.
I know Mark used one all fall, and Brad did. Brad, he uses a peep some and the scope some, but he actually used the red dot too, I think. But I guess they both, Mark and Brad, was raving about both of them. So we're taking on them red dots too, I guess.
Yeah. It's real
Yeah,
exciting.
those
I
are-
mean, Andy, he like overperforms. Like his company overperforms. Like those Skinner sights better than they needed to be. The scopes smaller, lighter, higher performance, higher quality glass than they need to be. So, and now this red dot's like a game changer too. So like, I don't use a scope on a Big Woods rifle yet, but like, I would consider it because this stuff's better than what's out there in the market right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we'll have that stuff on our website here pretty quick, I guess. And if anybody's hearing this podcast before the store goes live, we had a bunch of things to fix web-wise. I don't know nothing about it, but we're undergoing a little change there. And this was the time of year to take it offline a little bit when this time of year after hunting season, the sales drop a little bit. So, but she'll be back up there, and they're going to make the changes to make it more functional, I guess, and all of that. So yeah. All right. So looking forward to this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for us and for our fans. We're getting back to our roots of educating through entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. Got a good crew and
Yep.
a lot going on. You got some new guys editing too. That was a big help, huh?
Huge help. Yeah.
The editing's the biggest. People don't understand that. To bring a nice quality film out, you got to have people that know how to edit that stuff.
Yep.
And that ain't me.
I'm not great at it either, but
I don't know how to push those buttons. Don't want to even learn.
Yeah.
But we got some good editors that's getting the stuff done, and that's a big help. And
I didn't even know what his name was. I don't know if anybody had told me, but you'd mentioned my camp building video. What's the guy's name that did that?
I think Dean did that.
Dean.
Yeah, Dean Dillman. Yeah.
we got Dean
Well, if you talk
Dillman
with
from,
Dean,
I
if you
talk
talk
with Dean almost every day, so yeah.
well, you tell him not only was I happy with the quality and the editing that he did, but I didn't know that it was going to come out. And now looking back at it, I just told the story about how my dad got to see it before he passed.
Yeah.
Tell him I'm glad he did it in a timely fashion and it was good quality.
Yeah, so because you got to show your dad that video, right?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, really awesome.
And I've never met Dean and don't know him, but I'm happy that he's part of the team and taking care of stuff. Because like Hal said, he and I can take care of our end of it, but there's stuff that we're not going to take care of.
Yeah, no, that's his
we can
wheelhouse
gather
for sure.
some footage up, and that's about as far as it's going with me and Lee.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, everybody's got their skill set, right? And that's Dean's is editing for sure.
So, and Dean's from Nova Scotia, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's been following Big Woods, I guess, for a while.
I think so. Yeah. He's got his own channel too, but he's got an eye for photography, videography, and putting together good videos. So he's been great to work with.
And then we have Nathan
Nelson. Yeah. Stillwater
out,
Outdoors out there in
out
Minnesota.
in Wisconsin, right? Yep.
I think he's in Minnesota, right?
No, I think it's Wisconsin.
Right.
Is it Minnesota?
I don't know. Out there somewhere. What's the
think it's
difference, Nathan?
Wisconsin.
Aren't they the same? I don't know.
What's that?
Is that the same state? He'll explain it to us.
They both got big deer in them. I know that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have the help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's going to go good this year. More stuff, plenty of deer. You going to get to hunt?
Oh, yeah, better. Hopefully I'll tag out early and get
One of the things we might as well
Thought you was following me.
One of the things that we might as well say is if you want to get into big woods hunting, this is your year to go because we're having another easy winter. It's going to be 3 winters in a row where most of the deer are going to make it. And I got to tell you, I'm excited. I think we're going to have another great year. I told somebody, because I see all the people in Skowhegan when I'm not running the guide business, I see all the people in Hannaford shopping, and they're like, boy, I saw pictures of 6 bucks hanging on the pole up there. Boy, you don't see that very often. I'm like, yeah, there's more deer now than there has been in a long time, and hopefully next year we can just build on that.
Yeah, that was 6 on Tuesday of week 3.
And then they some of the guys had taken them down and left or something, but we was thinking about how we was going to have to extend it, and we ended up killing 9 that week, but they weren't all on the pole at once,
Yeah. was a lot of deer activity in the woods that week. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And this year here, I've been up my place. Now this is 20, we're going 20. I think it's 11 years now. And this is the first year there's been deer. We're into February, and I still got deer behind the house. Last year they stayed till into January, and then snow got a little deeper, and I didn't really think it was. I think the difference is this year is most of the snow stayed up in the softwoods earlier, and it stuck on there, so the snow didn't get underneath the green growth. It's like underneath the green growth is like 6 or 8 inches, all there is under there. And I got plenty of green out back. Last year, I think it blew down through, and I don't think we might have had a little more by now, but I know by the end of January, they'd pitch down they go down over the hill, and it starts to get less snow. But we walked out back the other day, and there must have been at least 5 or 6 deer and we only went that first stretch out behind the house. We probably went quarter of a mile.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, and there'd been 5 or 6 across since I was there the other day. Sunday, I took the dogs for a walk, and that was Thursday, and there'd been 6 or 7 right there.
Have you been out towards your remote and seen how far out there there's deer tracks?
No, I can't run my machine. Usually I got to go by machine to get out in there, and with my hand, I'm thinking one more week I'll be able to run my snow machine, but yeah.
I didn't know if maybe they were logging out towards there and you'd taken a trip with your truck out there or something.
Yeah, I haven't gone out with I went out with the truck. I don't know. Me and Rylan went out there in December, but I haven't been back since. I had this, in case anybody didn't know, I had my hand surgery about 3 weeks ago. I got to have the other one done next year, but I had a lot of pain there. I had a bone cartilage was gone, and they do an operation where they take the bone out of you that articulates your thumb, and they put some tendons and they pack it down in there and let it heal, and then you're good to go again. So it's getting there. Getting there pretty good. A little bit of a scar. I think that'll all go away, but it's old man stuff, Lee. So you're 9 years behind me. You might run into some of these problems.
I might, but I'm kind of hoping you started already. By the time you were 59, you'd probably how old were you when you had your first knee surgery?
I had both meniscus done about 3 or 4 years apart. One of them, I tore it in Alaska, first time I went. Second time I went. And the other one, I don't know what I did. I didn't know I did anything, but it just ended up, I had that same pain, and I think it's the same thing as the other knee. And that would have been 10 years ago, 12 years ago. At least more than 10, because I was over at the other place. So yeah, 10 to 15 years ago I had my knees done. And then I had them bone spurs behind both big toes, just something that crops up, and I don't know, it's probably from walking so much, I don't know, but I've had them fixed. Now I got to have both thumbs fixed.
Yeah,
other than that, everything's good.
I've been really lucky. I've never had anything done, but I think as I get older, people ask me all the time, why do you still work at Hannaford, and why do you still do this, and why do you still do that? I said, because if I didn't, I'd weigh 300 pounds. My family is just big, and if I didn't work all the time and stuff, I think I'm actually pretty lucky, I do notice, though, now that, like, if I go in to Hannaford and cut meat or whatever I'm doing in there, if I'm on them cement floors for an 8-hour day, my feet ache a little bit, and I never used to feel that. But all the guys I work with, same thing. They get hips replaced and knees replaced and all that. They're like half my size. I'm like, maybe I ought to.
What I noticed it really on most of the stuff, I got a few aches and pains from 55 to 60, but 60
is another whole plateau.
60 seems to be, and I've talked to a lot of guys about this. Everybody kind of agrees that 60 is the number that it almost gets a little more exponential. It's like when you start getting a few aches and pains at 55, you think, geez, what's the matter with me? Because whenever you had a pain younger, there's something wrong with you. Well, then you just realize it's just an ache or a pain, and you're going to live with it.
Stuff's worn out.
Yeah, and then 60, it's just you're gonna act. Most people, if you've worked, I know there's old Stan Moody there, that buddy of mine there. He's like in his early 80s, and he's stayed thin, and he's in good shape for his age. He still fly fishes and down the brooks and everything. So I asked him about a year ago. I said, Stan, you got any aches and pains? And he goes, no, I don't have any aches or pains. And I'm like, he's 80, and I'm like, holy smokes. But he didn't really ever have a physical job to wear stuff out. And that's what the doctor told me about my hands was, it's the only place in my hands, they call it arthritis. I guess the cartilage going is what makes arthritis, but it's the same place, same bone in both hands. The rest of my hands are fine. So I just worked with my hands so much. You might get something like that, or some arthritis in your hands from cutting meat. And you've worked with your hands hard all your life too. So just warning you, all you young guys, I got to warn you about these things.
Yep.
Chris says it to me all the time, the same thing. He goes, I knew it. He said he's talking about this ache or something that's bothering him, and he goes, I knew you told me about it, but I never believed you. He said, now I'm believing everything you say about this stuff.
I think one of the things, though, to get it back towards the whole Bigwood experience is you can't quit. You got to keep pushing on. One of the things that's going to, you take it for granted how, you're closer to 70 than 60 now, and you're still
a lot closer.
And you're going up mountains, some of the tallest mountains in Maine, chasing bucks and doing stuff like that. Most guys ain't doing that when they're pushing 70. So you gotta keep at it. Keeps you young.
Yeah, I just have to. This past year was a little bit more of a learning experience, because you got to realize every year you're going to feel a little different. You have to, and you're going to slow down a little more. It probably accelerates a little bit, but I finally realized this year I just have to take a day off once in a while. Especially this year I did. After pushing a big day up and down, the mountains are getting steeper and taller. I did notice that. And I can still do it, but if I go a big day in the mountains all day, I need to take a rest. Take a rest for a day.
Good news about that is I can keep up with you if I'm filming you.
What's that?
It slows you down so I can keep up with you when I'm filming.
Yeah, we had a big day up there. We did some crawling there.
Yeah.
It was worth it just to get that buck on film. You know?
That was cool. Yeah.
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 But, the next day was Sunday, so I got that day off. That was my day of rest. But
perfect timing.
Yeah. But, so I'm just going to adjust a little bit and try not to. This year, I just ran around too much the first 2 weeks on the bare ground, just trying to scout, and make them 10-mile days scouting. I'm like, I don't really need to do that. I know where there's some deer. I don't have to go make a 10-mile loop every day again. Yep. But it's just in me to do it, so I keep doing it. But I'm going to adjust. I'm going to try to save myself a little bit for the snowy days. And then I'll go hard on the snowy days.
Do 5-mile days on the days that you don't have to, and then do your 10-mile days when the conditions warrant it.
Yeah, and I don't really want to shoot one on the bare ground. I mean, if things were right, I would if it was a good one, But I always try to. I like to track so much. I just try to save myself for that, And so, but anyway, that's the way it is. That's part of the evolution, My evolution has got me to that point where I don't need to run around like a banshee and think I got to kill a first buck I see or even the first big one I see,
I shot mine on bare ground this year, but I had clients every week, and that client let me carry a gun, and I thought, I think that one looks big enough, and I'd rather, have shot one on the track, but I don't know that I'd have had any days that I'd have had to myself where I could track.
Well, let me tell you, them two big ones I see with Ryland, I'd have shot either one of them on bare ground because they were big.
Yeah.
And I don't mean they were just like 200-pounders.
250s.
Yeah. One of them, I didn't, the first one, he was surely 230 or better. He was big, and I mean, because I could see him. He was only 25 yards from me, bounding down through the grass. I mean, he was right in the open, And I'm like, and he had a nice rack. He was a heavy 8-point rack. I mean, I'm waiting for Ryland to shoot, and I'm like,
was he out of position?
Well, he was a little lower. He's shorter, and
Right.
he'd actually gone over the crest a little bit. It went up this little low ridge because what we were trying to do was he saw the small one go. We didn't know the big one was there. We was just trying to get a look at that other one. It was like a basket rack, and I thought it had crossed the river. But when we got up there, I realized that we weren't going to be able to see down to the river. It was too much brush, so it went up and over, and right on the top, in where we were looking, it was kind of that. It was all that hazelnut brush, that's about chest high or whatever. And then there was that point was like big spruce and stuff, and some of them had blown down. So there's them big, dead, blown down spruce with a brush in it. It's like a wall almost. You couldn't see. I'm trying to look in there, and I was grunting as we went up. I told Ryland, I said, just sneak up ahead of me, and I'll grunt. So I was grunting, and then when we got over there, and I stopped, and we realized we weren't. I said, so we're just kind of waiting, when I was grunting a little bit. And all of a sudden that smaller one jumped out and almost ran by me. That one was even closer because he kind of shot out of there. And when he did, he kind of went by, and I was kind of looking back and at Ryland. And when I turned my head back, I saw a big set of antlers in behind the blowdowns, like he made a jump because that big one was in there. And I think the little one ran over towards him somehow and got out of sight there. And then he didn't want to cross the river. He just, how sometimes you go by him, he went around kind of behind us, and the smaller one didn't go down over towards the river. He ran kind of back. And then when I seen that, and then Ryland did too, that big one jumped right out of that thick stuff. He had nowhere to go but across that open grass, went down to the river. But Ryland, he could see it jumping, but I thought he was probably, again, he doesn't have the experience. And as it was going down, it was getting further lower from him. So in retrospect, when it first jumped out there.
If he'd have come back towards you.
Well, but he was high enough up. I think probably if he'd have just known to just let her rip right through that buck, that buckbrush there, the hazelnut, he'd at least could have shot, but it just, as it went down, it was getting out of sight from him, that's all. But I was a little higher up, and I'm just watching him go down over there. And I'm like, that's a nice buck, And there's footage you'll see. I'm interviewing Ryland after that.
Oh, cool.
He's kind of talking about it, and you can see he's like,
he learned
didn't
something
really
that
want
day.
to talk about it.
Yeah, that's rough.
And then the other one, I don't know. It was the other one actually had a bigger rack, taller. I could see the other one seemed like it was a real tall rack, and I could see it was heavy. But the deer was big, but I wouldn't say it was it was no question, it was over 200, but I wouldn't claim it was 250. I didn't see it good enough. But either one of them, if I'd have had my gun, probably was in trouble, you know.
Yeah. I don't know, as I asked you, what was the biggest one they tagged at Bishop's this year?
I think it was like 242 or something.
Yeah.
They had a couple up around the 240s, not one as big as some of the years, but and that was pretty much statewide. Like, you know,
Yeah.
they
If
had
you get
one
the
big
top
one
10,
that was
yeah.
270, I think, and then the rest were like went down into the 250 or something for the.
Well, they had probably the first time I remember in quite a while, they had quite a few that were in the 240s were in the top 10.
This year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that year that I shot one that was 245. Weren't even close to everything in the top 10 was like 260 or bigger,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, 245 this year I think would have been top 5, probably, or right around 5.
No kidding. Yeah.
I think
don't know.
261, the one that they shot up Paul's way, I think 261 was the biggest one in the state this year. That's the smallest one that I remember ever being
Yeah.
the biggest one in the state too.
Yeah. The only thing I can think about, because there was more, well, I don't know if there was more deer shot statewide. I didn't get that number yet.
I think it was the second most. They ended up 2 years ago. They shot more bucks, but I think this was, the second most since back when they used
way
to kill a
back,
bunch
yeah.
of them back in the 60s or whatever. But
So probably pretty similar to last year. I know in town here it was 314, which was 114 more. It was 200 last year. The year before was 250, and I don't know why that changed. It must have been weather conditions or maybe amount of hunters. I don't know. But I think it was overall, there was just so many younger deer. People was just shooting, nice rack deer, and that takes them hunters out of the woods, and so.
And I think a lot of guys that are out, even guys that are out looking for 200 pounders like me, sometimes you got to make a pretty quick decision.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think a lot of guys probably shot 180 to 200 pound bucks that were probably looking for something better, but they probably saw multiples. Like, I'm like this. If I see 2 or 3 decent bucks, but I don't know just how big they are, eventually you start thinking to yourself, man, am I passing on so you might shoot something. If it's running down through the whippies, it's pretty easy to shoot a 185 pound buck if it's going down through the whips.
For sure.
I'm sure that a lot of guys shot because there was so many 2.5 and 3.5 year old deer.
Yeah, I think that's probably what
shot
it
'em.
was.
And like you had mentioned, Hal, like a couple weeks ago, you were mentioning how the racks were better this year. So
Oh yeah, by far. We started, the ones on the pole there, and then I'd ask the guys how much they weighed, and I'd start looking, I'm like, I'd never see deer that weighed 140, 150 pounds with the racks they had,
yeah, so they were more likely to get shot, and but they weighed less.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a client get one. I think it was the first or second week. It only weighed 181 pounds. And it had a ferocious big 10-point rack with long G2s and G3s.
That one that Chris's nephew Rob shot the first week.
That had a nice rack.
It
Nice
was
set
a-
of horns.
Heavy, wide, 8-point rack, and it weighed 160. So it's a 2-year-old deer with a rack like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe it's an older deer. I don't know, but I mean, 160, I always would assume wouldn't be any more than a 2-year-old deer. But it could have been just one of them smaller ones, smaller bodied. But it shows you, probably nobody would let that one go if they saw that rack. It was a big enough rack where they're going to it must be 200,
Yeah,
We stopped at and I'd have killed him no matter how much he weighed, but we stopped at the Athens corner store there where we tag stuff, and somebody, I saw a set of horns hanging on somebody's tailgate. I whipped it right in there. I told Adam, I said, we got to see that out. But I did notice when I looked at it, I thought, boy, for that set of horns, that deer doesn't look that big. But it was 160 pound buck, and I bet it had at least 150 inches of antlers. It had 13 points,
Yeah.
Heavy, wide, everything. It was a 13-point buck with a ferocious rack, and it weighed 160. Now, granted, down there they shoot some of the smaller ones, but you'd have never guessed that a rack like that was on a 160-pound deer.
Yeah. Yeah, because down that way, you'd kind of getting down out of that line of, the
Big woods.
boreal forest stuff. But because do you ever figure out how many they tag at that Athens store?
They tag a lot, 300 and something, I think.
Right, but how many over 200? Probably not.
I don't know. I haven't really looked, but we're more like in our area from like where I live, like in that Athens area. Once you get up like where, like in Brighton and Wellington and just north of 16, well, it's like up where, what's the guy that's been guiding with us? The first week. He's got a camp up there north of 16. But anyway, once you get up there, you start getting quite a few 200-pounders or ones that are over 200. But in the Skowhegan area, they shoot all kinds of bucks that weigh 180 or 190 pounds with big antlers. They're probably, on average, I'd say they're probably 20 pounds to 30 pounds lighter.
Yeah, because I noticed even like at Bingham, they don't kill like a very high percentage of 200-pounders down there. They might kill, I think one year when I stopped and looked, I don't know what year it was, but I think they'd only kill like 10 or 15 that were over 200 that they tagged there. Yeah. But it's just because that's the country it is, there's just less of them being on that line. But they kill a few 200-pounders all over the state. It's just like anything, if you want to kill a 200-pounder, you might as well hunt where there's more of them. Yeah.
Well, and what was Larry's old saying was, even where there's a lot of them, there ain't many of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good. Well, all right. Good conversation here today. And keep
good to have you.
Keep
good
me
to have
in line,
you here,
Scott. Keep me in line. Keep me.
Oh, you're easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we were saying, big year this year. And so to all our fans, I'd just say, let us know what you like and what you want to see. So comment on our YouTube videos and Facebook. And we're happy to react and give you guys the content
we
want.
The input from all you people, because we don't know necessarily what, and it could be, I always tell people, like, if you're asking a question, ask it, because there's 10 other people or 20 or 100 other people that's thinking the same thing. They don't want to ask it. So if there's any topics, that's why we did this one. I had a few emails about bare ground stuff, but we want to accommodate, whether it's through the podcast or films or anything. And we're doing this film series, but what are we going to call it? We're going to call it,
it's just me. Various topics with Master Main Guide Hal Blood.
So we're going to do, you got 25 of them we got on a list?
I think we're up to 21 at this point, but it's a live list. So
yeah, so we got a list going on, and we can add to it, and of subjects that I'm going to touch on in the coming year. They'll be out as films. And I'm also going to do, might as well announce this now, huh?
Now I got to do it, yeah.
Now I got to do it. I finally been thinking about it for a while and what people might like, but I'm going to sit down and tell deer stories of, like, starting back in the beginning, and just there'll be an individual story. That'll be the film. It'll be a story of a certain buck. And I'm going to just work my way through life telling these stories, and whatever the length they are. And it'll be like a fireside chat. I think it'll be fun, I guess. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm going to try to start it next week. I was going to try to start it this week, but between working extra hours and then, got the situation going on with my mom, spending some time and doing some stuff with her. But something that I used to do for Big Woods, and I'm going to bring it back, but try to make it better, because I'm going to try to shoot some footage too, is I'm going to do you remember I used to call it Throwback 30? On the 30th of every month, I used to pick something that was like a throwback, like I'd show an old postcard or an old magazine article or something
Yep.
and write something.
Those are good.
I'm gonna start doing those and just call it Throwback Thursday. And so on the Thursday of every week, I'm gonna try to post something old school. I really love that page that Jay Flannery's got.
Yeah, old
And
school. Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff on it, and I think I've had a lot of people ask me about bringing that back. So I had to give myself a kick in the pants too and say, what can you do to push some more? So we're gonna try to do some stuff that we think people will be interested in.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can hear back from you.
Yeah. This next week or so too, I'm going to dig out. I've got 2 great big boxes of photographs back when we had film cameras. And I mean, from, clients and all of that stuff. And some of them will be kind of nostalgic, I think. That's where I found the one with all the moose hanging on the pole. I'd gone through looking for some stuff one time, but I'm going to go through them again and just kind of pick out, a bunch of stuff. And I'd like to get them like, how you can get them like digitized or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can scan
do
those
something
in.
like that
Yep.
with them.
Well, something you could do, we could actually, if you got the time to do it, maybe you wouldn't do it every week, but if I titled mine Throwback Thursday, you could call yours My Old Monday or something like that. And we could,
Yeah.
we could play off each other, and I'll do one day and you do one another. And people really are, I know I am. Like I said, once I got on that Jay Flannery's page there, I love that. And people show some really cool stuff. One thing that I think is really good about that, I posted last week, was there's all kinds of people that you'll never hear of, but they got a picture of their father or their grandfather with a ferocious buck in the back of an old Studebaker or something.
Yeah.
And they post that. That stuff might be lost to history, but now because it's been posted on Facebook and everybody's got to see it and comment on it, I think that's a good thing. I told Jay, I said, if nothing else, Jay, you should be proud of that you did something that people will know about that.
Yeah.
And I want to do that. I've got a great library of books and magazines. One thing I'm going to try to tie into it is one of the things that my dad left me was he has those it's not Fur Fish and Game. What was the one the state put out? It was called Maine Fish and Wildlife.
Maine Fish and Game.
Maine Fish and Game.
Yeah.
I've got almost every copy from 1958 up into the 90s, and the fall issue every year had the previous bucks, from the year previous. And that list is pretty entertaining. I think I told you I saw some of your old relatives. There was a few bloods back there in the 80s and 90s that shot some nice bucks. And the thing that's nice about it, it tells you how much the buck weighed. I think sometimes it has what they had for racks, but the town they were from, the town they shot them in, and the gun that they shot them with. And it was something Brian asked me to do a while ago, was, different guns that were used throughout the history. And back in the 50s, it was all about the 30-30 and the 32s and the 35s. And then by the 60s, you'd moved up. There was more .6 and 308 and 270, and how it was a progression.
Yeah.
And it's funny how history, we should learn from history, right? And then we should, talk about it as well.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Well, we'll sign off now. And once again, appreciate you all for following and listening in, tuning in. And hope you support the sponsors and subscribe if you haven't. And till next week or next time, good luck on the trail.